Welcome to the Decide Your Legacy podcast, helping individuals and businesses unleash their potential. Join us every episode as host Adam Gregg discusses what is holding us back and how to find hope for moving forward. Along the way, we discuss developing healthy relationships and navigating life transitions while overcoming fear, stress, and anxiety. Live the life you want, the legacy you decide.
2.5 years ago, I had a major sleep issue. And I look back and I think there was a lot of self-care type stuff that I knew better. I knew to apply, but I wasn't applying it. And I have even thought, like, how did I get myself into the situation where I was stuck in worry. I couldn't get out of thinking about my situation and what I didn't like about my life. And I ended up losing some weight. I ended up just having a tremendous amount of anxiety that I wasn't facing and dealing with. And luckily I got help and I got things straightened out. I sleep good now. I'm very grateful for that. But I look back and I think I made one huge mistake, glaring mistake, and it was believing something that I know and I knew was not true, but I felt like it was true at the time. And it was that I was making my life too much about me. And I wasn't thinking about all the good things in my life and the other people in my life, but I was thinking about me and my problems consistently. That was big. And I was thinking so much about me that I wasn't involving myself in things that I do love, because I like to work with youth at church as a leader, and I wasn't doing that. I wasn't involved in some habits that I had been engaged in for decades. Honestly, I stepped away from those things, and I wasn't being involved with healthy people the way that I could have been and have been in the past, but I'm in a much better place now. And as I think about this, a lot of the content I'm going to share with you today is inspired from a sermon I heard yesterday. It was from Craig Groeschel with Life Church, and it's called Almost True. It helped me to think some things through related to self-care that I've known and talked about for years, but to clarify some areas of my life. So this is episode number 126 of the Decide Your Legacy podcast. Today's episode is called Surprising Self-Care, Surprising Truths About Self-Care. Some things that'll really surprise you and inspire you as well, because they're going to give you hope that you can do some things different. Because you may be like me, where I was 2.5 years ago. I was doing things that felt like the right thing, but I was also doing it in such a way that it was harming me and forgetting my motive was wrong. Meaning, you wouldn't look at me and say, well, Adam was engaging in bad, harmful things, drugs and alcohol and just negative things. I wasn't. I didn't do that. I don't do that now. But I was engaging in consumption, thinking about myself all the time and my problems, and acting as if no one else could relate, and isolating to a very high level. So I want you to glean some wonderful, cool things about self-care, and it's going to surprise you, and it may even make you mad, but that's okay. I'm your host, Adam Gregg. I've been a coach and a content creator, a speaker, a mental health professional for over 25 years, and I help people find clarity, the clarity needed to face their biggest fears and live their legacy. That's my passion. I talk about stuff I struggle with myself. I don't have it all figured out. I'm definitely a fellow traveler. I want to share something uncomfortable that I did recently, because each episode, I want to challenge you to do the same. Nothing is more important to your mental health than facing your fears, the biggest fears in your life, and nothing is more damaging than playing it safe. A risk that I took recently is I actually asked for advice from somebody that I didn't know very well on some health stuff. And it was cool. I didn't know what they were going to say, but they gave me some really good feedback. And they actually recommended a book that I just got out at the library today. Yes, I have a library card because I want to save that. I like stewardship. I can afford to buy the book, but I wanted to go ahead and check it out. So I did. And the book's called Breathe. I haven't read it, but I'm excited about it. So this is the podcast that you get to do, not just listen to. So that means you get to take an action, something that will make you uncomfortable as well. I want you to think in your life, what is a way that you might be being selfish? Okay. How are you being self-absorbed in your life? Are you taking a whole bunch of selfies and posting them all the time on Instagram? Is that it? Are you worried? Are you thinking about your life as being miserable and other people can't relate? Yeah, that could be selfish. Selfish in a way that maybe you haven't thought of it as selfish, but what I mean is being self absorbed, not believing anybody else can relate. So, how do you do that specifically in your life? And this is a really important topic because self care relates to mental health. And I'm very sensitive to this because I've dealt with and seen and had personal experiences with friends and people that have had serious mental health issues. I've dealt with and experienced and seen, and well, not directly, but I've been around suicidality and people that have actually known that I've known that have committed suicide. It's a sensitive topic, and I get why people take it so seriously, but we have it so incredibly backwards in a lot of cases. And I've got to address this. And again, it's going to probably piss some people off, but that's okay because conventional wisdom will say oftentimes, put yourself first, put your needs ahead of others. It'll say, you know, push anybody that you might perceive as negative out of your life. And I've seen people do that with good, positive people because they didn't want to hear what they were actually sharing with them in their life. And they created and they labeled them as being negative and toxic when they really weren't. That person was being toxic by cutting him out of their life. And you'll even hear this thing that I have said many times, and I regret saying it. And I've said it in a way where I believe I've described it carefully and clearly, but I can see how it can be misconstrued that there's this attitude that we have to love ourselves first before we can love other people. Now, it is important to love yourself, but it can also be very damaging because it creates this self-focused, I'm only important in this situation that's not healthy. And we make ourselves into an idol. We make ourselves into something that's not healthy for us and other people that love us and care for us. And even some therapy techniques that I have found. And again, I've been in mental health for 25 years here. I've seen a lot of the stuff. And I'm not perfect as a therapist. I mean, it can be at times counseling, clinical work can make people focus too much on themselves and not enough on the things that can take their mind off of themselves onto the best parts of their lives. So that's the very first surprise that for many of you, the surprise is to be good at self care, to become healthier mentally, think of yourself less. Not think less of yourself. I don't want you to think less. I want you to think highly of yourself. Be confident, see your value, but think less. Think about yourself less. The more you think about yourself and consumed in yourself, the worse your anxiety and depression will be. And we're told this. We're saying, think about yourself a lot. What do you need? What do you want? Put attention to yourself. There is some truth to that. But again, as Craig Groeschel described it, it's almost true, but it's not the whole truth. It's not the complete truth. Great example is social media. When you're on social media, are you generous or are you selfish? I would suggest that the majority of the things I see on social media are selfish. They're people and businesses and organizations looking for validation. Look at me, look at how great I am. It's not about helping and serving other people. If it is, then it can be generous. That's why I still have a Facebook account. Can I do something on there that's generous and helping other people? If I'm engaging in putting content on Facebook, I'm going to make myself depressed when I'm thinking about myself. How good do I look? How do other people perceive me? If someone's giving you advice that taking more pictures of yourself to make you feel good about yourself is good for your mental health, they're lying to you. Stay away from that source of advice. I'm not you could taking a picture and saying, I like myself, I like how I look, this is how God made me to be. But if you're doing it to get some sort of validation that you're good enough, it's not going to be healthy. That sounds very confusing, but the motive is extraordinarily different. The motive is so different in that situation because one is generous and one is selfish. More and more depression comes out of this self-focused living for ourselves. Think less of yourself. Instead of sending something out on Facebook or Instagram, maybe you send a group text to all your close friends and family, say, I'm thinking about you. And here's a cool picture of me and my daughter visiting somewhere, or me and my son at his soccer match. But it's not about that validation piece. It's about connection, which is generous. It's generous to connect. That's one of the things about art. I look at art and I say, if this is connecting people, it's going to have a generous flavor to it. If it's about proving a point, it's going to have a selfish flavor to it. I'm not saying it's not art. I'm saying that it's the difference in my perspective about what is good, soul enriching art and stuff that's not. There are people in the mental health world that do more damage than good, and you know it by what they're helping you channel your attention towards. You know you're in a good situation with a clinical person when you're becoming more generous and less self-focused. It doesn't mean you don't deal with your past trauma. It doesn't mean you don't go there, because that's essential. That's absolutely. You just go back and listen to other podcasts I've done over the last 4 years, and you're going to see how important it is to go ahead and deal and face your stuff. But if you're and it's not, it may not be the therapist's fault too. It may be your fault. Maybe they're challenging you to get out of your own head and to see the potential in your life and the opportunity, but you don't want to go there. So I'm not saying, and don't say you listen to this podcast by Adam Gregg and he's telling me you're a selfish therapist. Not at all. You're misunderstanding what I'm doing here, what I'm sharing here. I want you to look at it and say, is the general direction that I'm seeing, I'm taking ownership of my life. I'm seeing that I have a will and I can do great productive things. I can give back. I have so much to offer. I have great strengths, but it's not all about me. It's not all about me. It's not all about you. You don't want to be around people spend a lot of energy around people where it's all about you. Be around generous, giving people. Where do you start to think about yourself less? Well, you can start by going ahead and clicking the link to a blog post I wrote recently on 7 benefits of facing scary things in your life. And you can look at that list. There's a list in a link to 27 scary actions you can take. Just a couple of them, you're going to be thinking about yourself less because you're doing things where you could be embarrassed. You could be judged. You may not feel competent or confident, but you're doing it anyway. And just check a couple things off the list by doing it. First surprise is to think less, think about yourself less, not think less of yourself. Think of yourself less. Those are different, just kind of the word order, but it's a very different statement. The second surprise is to think more of others. And again, get consumed by what other people are doing, because thinking more of others could be, I can go ahead and look at and analyze all the gossip in my office and really get my teeth into what's really going on in the drama in my family and think about them all the time and what they're doing and be consumed by them and be jealous. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying think more of others, think more highly of others. When somebody does something you don't agree with, try to empathize, understand why they might have been doing that. It'll make you actually sad and empathetic rather than judgy. Thinking more of others is not being more judgy. It's being more empathetic. It's being more compassionate. It's seeing opportunities to help other people. It's seeing opportunities to give back. Maybe, and this is something I heard directly from that sermon yesterday, and I'll link to that too, which was very inspiring, as Craig Groeschel is. And it's maybe our problem isn't that we don't love ourselves enough. Maybe it's that we love ourselves too much. Wow. Okay. I really thought about that. Like, the assumption is that it's almost an assumption that we do love ourselves. And because we do love ourselves, we can't love other people very well until we love them like we do ourselves. Get it? Because it comes from the great commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. The assumption being we already do love ourselves. So when we think more of others, we may be mentoring people at work and not really feeling as if we deserve something for doing this. We just want to do this. I remember people in my life who have thought of me and what I'm going for. So I have a friend who passed away in recent years. His name's Tom, and Tom was a great guy. I remember when I lost my job in 2007, I was in a small men's group with Tom. And after the men's group, he teared up and he said that he felt like he wanted me to know that he was there for me in this difficult time. I think about Tom a lot because he took the time and the space to invest and to really know what was going on in my life. And I remember he was one of a few that did that, but it really made a huge difference in my life. The people who have been generous with me, thinking about me, remembering my birthday, remembering what I have going on with my family and my parents and my daughter, Dave and Melissa and Nate and Tara and Brent and Melanie. I mean, there's lots of people that I know have taken the time to remember me, and you can do the same for them. And that's going to make you're going to be caring for yourself as you think more of others. Really exciting thing. So if you want to engage people, here's an action you can take. Call this SOS. So when you engage somebody, ask about their struggles, their opportunities, and their strengths. You don't have to ask very specific questions about, what are your struggles? You can say, what's going on in your life? Or what have you been worrying about lately? Opportunities, you can ask them that specific question if you want. You can ask them specifically about their struggles. I don't care, but you make it and put it in words. You word it the way you would ask a question. So, what's going right in your life? What do you see as the potential in your life? And then their strengths and how they can apply their strengths. And then listen. The people like my buddy Tom, who were present in my life, I will never forget because that's his legacy for me in my life. Most people don't do that, but you remember the people that do, that are present, fully engaging in your life. Another action you can take is just put your phone away when you're interacting with people, and don't even be tempted to look at it. Just put it away. Leave it in your car. Leave it in on your nightstand while you have dinner with your parents or your kids or your friends. So if you found this podcast helpful, I got something very exciting for you. Something you can put your attention into that's going to help you face your fears, something that's going to help you to care for yourself. And it's called Shatterproof Yourself: 7 Small Steps to a Giant Leap in Your Mental Health. This is content that I've gleaned from 25 years of working with thousands of clients and thousands of families and hundreds of companies. And it's what works, not the fluff, not the stuff that's going to make you worse. And there is stuff out there like that in the mental health community. It's a process that you can go through on your own. It's Shatterproof Yourself Light. It's a 30-minute course and workbook. You fill it out, you engage, inspiring content, challenging actions, tremendous inspiration. So the third surprise about self-care is that it's going to take, and you've already started doing that with these first 2 surprises about thinking about yourself less and thinking about others more, is to shift your perspective. That's the third secret. So caring for yourself is often very different than what you might have thought. Self-care can be what you don't do, not necessarily what you do. So it can be tremendous self-care by not getting sucked into distractions that are keeping you from facing the core issues in your life. So you have a drinking problem, yet you consistently get distracted by your friends who want to ask you out to drink. Or you consistently get distracted by work, which stresses you out, which justifies why you think you can drink. Or you consistently get distracted by your kids' stuff and don't do things with your healthy friends that you met at work that want to get you to go out to do something very healthy and productive, like go on a run or go and volunteer for some charity. But you keep avoiding it. And if you start to shift your perspective to seeing how that is actually self-care by doing the scary stuff in my life, it's going to change your life. Some ways people need to shift their perspective related to self-care is when they start justifying why they can't engage in self-care. I don't have time. I don't have the money. You start having this self-protective mentality. I'm not going to do this next right thing because that's going to hurt me. And it's not. You're just justifying why you're not going to do it. I remember hearing from people, I've heard this from a number of different people, on why they won't go to a meeting when they have a drinking problem, like Alcoholics Anonymous. And they'll say, well, my friends will find out about it. Well, it's anonymous, but my friends will find out about it. I'll run into a friend. Or I've even heard it said to me that I'll lose my job because I go to this Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And I think that those to them are real fears, but are they based in reality? I mean, it's real because they feel that way, but is it really based in reality? I've heard people say that they're going to meet people who are going to want them to go out and drink more because they go to an AA meeting. And is that really based in reality? I mean, it's probably happened, but you're more likely to meet people who do not want to drink than people who do want to drink. Maybe you don't want to stop, and so you're going to engage it, and you're going to be the one. Maybe you're afraid that you're going to want to pull somebody out of AA and go drink. I don't know, but we justify things when we have that kind of a mindset that something bad is going to happen, and it's a justification. It's a reason to avoid, but it's not based on reality. So how do we shift our mindset? Something that I find really helpful is when we have a 25-year perspective for our future. So I'm 50 years old, and I have, for the last 10 years plus, believe that I was going to live to 100. Now, I have no control over certain aspects of my life, but I have a ton of influence. And that motivates me to take tremendously good care of myself. So it motivates me to get to the gym. It motivates me to eat healthy. It motivates me not to put crap in my body. It motivates me to take care of my mental health. It motivates me to engage in good, healthy, positive people. Because I have this perspective that I'm going to be around in 75 at age 75, and I'm going to be actually healthier and happier than I am now. I believe that. I truly do. Then I'm willing to do hard things now to care for myself. All right. So that's a shift in my perspective. So are you willing? I mean, if I have this mentality to say I'm going to be here at age 100 and I'm going to be healthy, then of course, drinking water is important for me. Getting enough sleep is important for me. Getting enough exercise is important for me. Being around healthy people is important to me because I'm focusing on that vision. It's in the background playing that I want to get to this place. So it becomes a filter. When a great life has a lot of different filters. Our core values are a filter. Our vision is a filter. Having a purpose in our life is a filter because we don't let anything be a part of our life that's not filtered through that life purpose statement, which for me is to help people find transformational clarity to face their biggest fears to live their legacy. And so I'm not going to engage in activities with my job that aren't going to be filtered through that. I'm not going to start programs that decide your legacy that aren't going to be filtered through that. I'm not going to do things with my time and my money and my resources that aren't filtered through. That's what a legacy plan is. It's a number of different filters in your life that you can focus on that help you stay focused on the right things in your life. If it doesn't fit, it's not going to make it through. And that's going to help you to care for yourself better because your perspective is shifting about what self-care really is. That's a perspective shift that I can think of myself I'm going to be less self-absorbed, and that's going to help me to care for myself. It's a perspective shift to think I can think about other people in their lives and what their needs are and how I can help them. And that's going to benefit my self-care. It's a perspective shift to think that I can have filters in my life and those can guide me. And that vision is going to be a filter in my life. And that's going to help me to have self-care. It's counterintuitive. It doesn't necessarily make sense. Find out what your purpose is. So what you can do if you want to focus on this is think of where you want to be in 10 years or 5 years. I like to start with 5 years. 5 years is a good time frame. It's long enough out there that it seems like a stretch. It's a stretch for you to think about it, but it's close enough to be able to picture that actually happening in your life. So for me, age 55 is a good time frame. And so if I have this life at age 55 that I want to have, and this is something that I'd encourage you to think about. If I have this life that I want to have in 5 years at age 55, and I'm making a lot of progress in each area of my life, this ideal life, I'm making tremendous amount of progress in my health, financially, career, relationships, my kids, in my case, my daughter, with friends, my social life, my spiritual life, a tremendous amount of progress. What three things need to be true about what happened in that 5 year period about my life? What three things I'm crystal clear on that need to be true about my life for me to have that level of progress 5 years from now? That's going to give you a great deal of insight into your life about what you want to invest in now to get to where you want to be in 5 years. And I can guarantee you it's going to be positive self-care type actions that you're going to engage in consistently in your life. You're going to drink enough water. You're going to be around good people. Potentially some things you're not doing well right now that you know would hinder you from having that life of progress 5 years from now. And you're going to write that down, and maybe specific types of people that you're engaging consistently over a long period of time. 5 years is a long time. That perspective shift is going to help you tremendously to start putting those things in your life. So what are those changes that you would make to have that kind of life that you want to have 5 years from now? Think about that. It's going to inspire you. So let's go ahead and summarize these surprising things about self-care that are counterintuitive that you may not be thinking about. In fact, you may have heard the opposite. You may have heard focus more on yourself, take better care of yourself by focusing on yourself, put yourself first. I'm saying the opposite. Think of yourself less. Don't think of yourself a lot. Put yourself at a very high level. Be confident in yourself, but think of yourself less. Don't be so self-consumed potentially in yourself. We live in a society that has an issue with that. Think of others more is the second surprising thing. Think of others more, not in a selfish way, but how can I help them? What might be going on in their life? What is a struggle they have? And ask them questions like, what are your struggles and opportunities and strengths? Get to know their strengths because they have them and you can be a person to point them out in their life. And then shift your perspective. One huge giant perspective shift is what can I do now that's going to be helpful to get towards my vision. And it might be counterintuitive to what you would have done had you been focusing on yourself, because maybe you would have neglected yourself potentially to focus on yourself today. Neglected yourself is a loose term. Maybe you would have been putting yourself first by spending money on yourself, let's say. But maybe as you have a longer term vision, you're actually saving money. And that's a self care action because you want to have this life in 5 years that's going to require you to be more disciplined with your finances. There you go. So check out the latest podcast article. I'm sorry, on the last blog article that I wrote. It's on 7 major reasons to face the scary things in your life. Really encourage you to also download and access the Decide Your Legacy app, which on the Decide Your Legacy app, you can access Shatterproof Yourself Lite through the app. It's a free app to download on Apple right now. It's going to be on Google Play very soon. So by the time you listen to this podcast, it may actually be on Google Play as well. But go through Shatterproof Yourself Lite. There's some bonus videos and a worksheet on Shatterproof Yourself Lite on the app as well. So remember, insight is 20% of transformational change. You're gaining insight through this podcast today, but 80% is action. An okay plan that you act on is 100 times better than a great plan that you do nothing with. What resonated with you most today? By the end of the day today, apply something that you learned. If you want it to stick, talk about it to somebody else as well. I'll sign off the way that I always do. Make it your mission to live the life now that you want to be remembered for 10 years after you're gone. You decide your legacy, no one else. I appreciate you greatly, and I'll see you next time.
This show is part of the ICT Podcast Network. For more information, visit ictpod.net.